Imagine, late night, empty highway, just your truck and the dark. Then something in your mirror, not a car, something else. What do you do?
Hello, night owls. I am Dusky Nights, and I bring you real-life horror stories that will help you sleep, or maybe keep you awake. But before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it right now? Also, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel.
Years ago, before GPS and smartphones made navigating the city a breeze, I was just another truck driver trying to make a living. I had a simple job that night: pick up some meat from a warehouse downtown Chicago and get it on the road. Little did I know that simple task would turn into one of the most unsettling experiences of my life. I had been driving for hours, winding through the busy streets, trying to find my destination. The city can be a maze, especially when you're in a truck, and I was getting frustrated. The more I drove, the more lost I became. The streets didn't look familiar anymore. I was in the heart of downtown, trying to navigate my way through, but it seemed like every turn led to another dead end. Finally, I came upon a bridge, a big one. I thought I could get under it, but the clearance was too low. My truck wasn't going to fit. I was stuck. I stopped in the middle of the road, staring at the bridge, trying to figure out how to get back on track. That's when I heard a voice from the corner. A man was standing on the sidewalk, yelling at me. He looked scruffy, with a thick beard and a worn-out jacket. He waved his arms and called out, "Hey! For $25, I'll get you back on the highway." I hesitated for a moment, but honestly, I didn't have a better option. I was lost, and I needed to get back to the highway. I agreed, and the man quickly hopped up onto the side of my truck near the driver's door. He guided me through the narrow streets, leading me right back to the entrance ramp to I-94. It was the weirdest thing. I couldn't figure out how this guy knew exactly where I needed to go. But I wasn't asking questions. I was just happy to be back on track. When I reached the ramp, I pulled out the $25 I had promised him, ready to hand it over. That's when everything shifted. The man turned toward me with a cold look in his eyes. I reached for the money, but instead of taking it, he pulled out a knife. The blade glinted in the dim light as he told me, "Give me everything you got." My heart dropped. I could feel my adrenaline surge, the fear creeping up my spine. Without thinking, I slammed the button to roll up the window and lock the door. I could hear him yelling outside, but I wasn't about to let him get inside. I had to get away. I put the truck into gear and started pulling onto the entrance ramp. My hands were shaking as I pushed the pedal to the floor. I had to get away. I was only going about 35 miles per hour when I saw him jump off the side of the truck, But I didn't slow down until I was well away from that bridge and that man. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't managed to get away, but in that moment, all I could think was how quickly things can go from bad to worse when you're out there, on the road, in places you don't know. That wasn't the only strange thing to happen during that trip. It wasn't long after that I pulled out of the same meat plant. Heading to the highway again, I stopped at a red light, waiting for it to change. There was only one truck ahead of me, and I didn't think much of it. A few people were standing by the corner, and I assumed they were waiting for a bus. But then, things got weird again. Before I could even process what was happening, I saw the group of people rush the truck in front of me. They weren't waiting for a bus. They were breaking open the trailer doors like they knew exactly what they were doing. They started passing boxes of meat to each other like it was some kind of assembly line. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. They were looting the truck right there in front of me. I grabbed the CB radio and hollered at the driver of the truck, trying to get her attention. Just as I was about to hit the horn, the driver popped out of the cab, holding a gun. I could barely make out her figure, but it was clear she wasn't playing around. I froze for a second, the tension thick in the air. I had no idea if she was going to shoot or if she was just trying to protect her goods. All I knew was I had to get out of there. I was far enough behind the truck to make my move, and I immediately pulled around it, speeding away from the chaos unfolding in front of me. I didn't even look back as I drove, but the image of those people breaking into a truck in the middle of the night stayed with me. I can't say for sure what happened after I left, but I've never forgotten those moments. The fear, the sense that something wasn't right, how quickly everything can spiral out of control on the road. Years ago, my dad's coworker, a dump truck driver, had a night shift experience that convinced me some roads are better left untraveled. It was a quiet night, just another shift, hauling dirt and debris, his headlights cutting through the dark, the familiar hum of the engine his only company as he navigated the winding roads. He had driven this route 100 times before, but tonight, something felt different. Around 2 a.m., while cruising down a desolate country road, he suddenly heard the loud scream of a horse. Then, the unmistakable screech of metal against wood, the grinding noise cutting through the quiet night. He slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. The sound was deafening, the truck jolting under the weight of something heavy. He jumped out of the truck, his mind racing, scanning the area for the wreckage of a horse and buggy. But when he stepped out into the cold air, there was nothing. Nothing but the empty, moonlit road stretching out in front of him. No broken wagon wheels, no horse laying on the ground, and no sign of the people he was sure He had just heard screaming. Confused and shaken, he wandered around checking the area, but found nothing. The eerie silence weighed on him, and the hair on the back of his neck stood up. Eventually, he decided to get back in his truck and keep driving. Maybe it was just some strange illusion, or maybe his mind had played tricks on him. He didn't know, but the event had unsettled him. He needed a place to calm his nerves and clear his head. That's when he saw the all-night diner up ahead. A flickering neon sign that said, "Open 24 hours." He pulled into the lot, desperate to get some coffee and shake off the unease crawling up his spine. The waitress behind the counter, a tired woman in her mid-30s, noticed his state immediately. He was pale, his hands trembling as he took a seat at the counter. She asked him, "You okay, hun? You been in an accident?" He looked at her, unable to shake the vision of what he had just experienced. "What? No, I don't know. I think I just hit something. A horse and buggy. But when I checked, there was nothing there." The waitress froze for a moment. She set the coffee pot down slowly, her eyes narrowing. "Was it on Old Mill Road?" she asked. His stomach dropped. That was the exact road he had been on. The waitress took a deep breath, and her voice dropped to a whisper as she leaned in a little closer. "There's been a lot of talk about that road, especially late at night. People swear they've seen things, mostly folks who've hit a horse and buggy, but when they stop to check, there's nothing there. Just the sound of the horse screaming. It's been going on for years." His blood ran cold as the waitress continued. "There was a bad accident on that road years ago. A family in a buggy was hit by a truck. All of them gone. But every once in a while someone comes in here with the same story, just like yours. Same stretch of road, same strange accident, same disappearing buggy." The words hung heavy in the air, and he was left in stunned silence. He left the diner that night, feeling more disturbed than when he'd arrived, his mind spinning with what the waitress had said. Could it be true? Had he really just encountered some kind of phantom buggy? He never went back to that stretch of road after that night, not once. But he still thinks about it, even to this day. Every time he drives through that part of the country, he remembers the strange, grinding sound and the emptiness that followed. I had been running on fumes for days, my eyes bloodshot from the long hours. The hours were endless, and the job was barely regulated. The problem was, even sheer habit was starting to fail me. The radio chatter had become a blur of white noise. The voices of the other drivers fading into the background like static. All I could hear now was the rhythmic hum of the engine and the low whistle of the wind against the truck. I had stopped talking to myself hours ago to stay alert. My mind was shutting down, running on autopilot, but I kept pushing forward. I don't know how many hours I had been on the road that day, but I wasn't thinking clearly anymore. I wasn't even sure where I was on the route. It was a familiar mountain highway, but now it felt different. The road seemed to stretch on forever, and every mile was a blur. That's when it happened. I saw it in my peripheral vision first, a shadow too large to ignore, moving beside the truck. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the light, or maybe the fog. But then it kept pace with me. It was huge, the size of a car, running along the shoulder lane, its legs moving at a slower pace than the truck, but somehow keeping up. I glanced at it quickly, but when I turned my head, it disappeared like smoke in the wind. I could only see it out of the corner of my eye, flickering in and out of view. It was a shadow, but it had form. I could see its shape, its bulk, even though it seemed to vanish as soon as I focused on it. And then I remembered the black dog, a creature from folklore, said to be an omen of death. At first, I didn't think much of it. I wasn't falling asleep. I had been slamming energy shooters like they were candy, and my heart was racing, but I was no longer fully aware of what was going on. It was like my body was moving without my consent. The truck kept going, my hands gripping the wheel, but my mind was slipping into that strange place where you're awake but not really awake. It wasn't scary at first, not like you'd expect. It was more confusing. I should have pulled over. I should have stopped, rested, gotten some sleep, but I didn't. I had a goal in mind. I was so close to the end of my week, so close to being in my bed. I convinced myself that I could make it. The black dog, the shadow, it didn't matter. I could keep going, but what if I hadn't made it? What if I had closed my eyes for just a second too long, or let my mind slip too far into the darkness? I pushed through the fatigue. I kept my foot on the pedal. The road stretched on, the wind whistling louder as I sped along, the shadow of the black dog flickering in and out of my view. It was a warning, I knew that much, but there was nothing I could do. I had chosen the road. The hours blurred together, the truck hummed beneath me, and I kept driving. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I wondered if that black dog had been right. Maybe I had made the wrong choice. Maybe the road I was on wasn't just leading me home. Maybe it was leading me to something much worse. My dad's been a truck driver for 6 years. He's had his fair share of long hauls, but when he tells me about his scariest experience, I can't help but get chills. He was exhausted, and the road was starting to mess with his mind after driving for about 11 hours straight. He pulled into a truck stop that seemed pretty isolated, surrounded by nothing but dense forest stretching for miles. About an hour or so later, he was jolted awake by a sudden, hard thump on the hood of the truck. Startled, he slowly sat up, his body stiff with tension. He peeked out into the dark, and that's when he saw them. 2 of the biggest wolves he'd ever seen standing right there on the hood of his truck. The sight of them made his blood run cold. They weren't just wolves, they were monstrous. Their eyes locked on him with a chilling intensity. For a moment, he was frozen, unsure of what to do. But then, his instincts kicked in. Without hesitation, he slammed his hand down on the horn. The loud, blaring sound echoed through the night, sending the wolves jumping off the hood and disappearing into the darkness of the surrounding forest. But even after they were gone, my dad didn't feel safe. He grabbed his gun, thinking maybe it was better to be safe than sorry. He cautiously stepped out of the truck, scanning the area. He walked over to a nearby coffee station, trying to calm his nerves, but the whole experience stayed with him. He climbed back into the truck and resumed his drive. But the rest of the journey was far from peaceful. He couldn't stop thinking about those wolves, about their size, their eyes, and the way they had moved so effortlessly in the dark. It wasn't until later, when I asked him what he meant by biggest wolves, that the real horror hit me. I looked up the size of a wolf just to get a sense of what my dad had seen. I couldn't believe how huge those animals can get. Some of them can weigh up to 150 pounds, and their jaws are powerful enough to crush bone. So yeah, maybe my dad didn't seem that scared at the time, but looking back on it, I can't help but think just how close he came to something far worse. A couple of wolves the size of small horses, silently stalking through the forest, waiting for something or someone to wander into their territory. It doesn't seem so harmless now. It was supposed to be just another long haul, another night of driving through the winding roads of eastern Tennessee. But what I saw on I-26 northbound one night made my blood run cold. I'd been driving for hours. The hum of the engine and the constant turning of the wheel growing repetitive. My eyes were heavy, my body tired, and I was just trying to get through the night. But then I hit a traffic jam, an hour-long delay that felt like an eternity. The radio was dead, and all I could do was watch the brake lights ahead of me, red as the dying sun, stretching far beyond what I could see. Eventually, the traffic started to crawl again, and as I rounded a corner, I saw it. The accident. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. A FedEx semi had run off the road, crashing into the trees on the right. But it wasn't just any crash. The trees were littered with FedEx packages, some stuck in the branches 40 feet up in the air, dozens of them swinging like strange ornaments on a grotesque Christmas tree. The sight sent a shiver down my spine. Something about it felt wrong. I slowed down as I passed the wreck, instinctively glancing at the damage. Like any trucker, you always look at the wreck to see what's happened. Who was involved? Did the driver make it? I could tell the trailer had been mangled. No surprise there, but what really caught my attention was what wasn't there. The tractor. It was gone. Just missing. I blinked, thinking maybe I hadn't seen it right. I was tired after all. But no, there was no mistaking it. The tractor, the engine of the truck, was nowhere to be found. I slowed even further, trying to make sense of what had happened. Had they towed it away? No, that wasn't possible. There was no sign of a tow truck. It was just gone. I kept driving, but my hands were shaking. My pulse had spiked and my mind raced with possibilities. The longer I thought about it, the stranger it felt. Where did the tractor go? Why was it missing? Why was it so unsettling? By the time I reached the next rest area, I couldn't take it anymore. The unease gnawed at me, and I had to stop. I pulled into the rest area, not even sure why, but I knew I had to get out of the truck. I needed to walk to clear my head. As I stepped out of the cab, I saw another driver pull in, his truck just a few spots away. He climbed out slowly, looking just as unsteady as I felt. His shoulders were hunched, his face pale. He looked like he had the same thing weighing on him that I did. "Rough night?" I asked him, trying to make conversation. He nodded, but I could tell he wasn't in the mood to talk. "You see that wreck back there?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded. "Yeah, the FedEx truck. Where's the tractor?" I had to ask. My mind wouldn't let it go. The other driver rubbed his face and exhaled slowly. "I was stopped there long enough to figure it out," he said, shaking his head. "The engine's at the base of that big tree, you see. The two sides of the cab, they went way past the tree on either side. And the chassis, it's broken up into chunks." I felt my stomach drop. The silence between us grew thick. "Survival?" I asked, barely able to get the words out. The other driver didn't answer immediately. He just looked at me, his face ashen. Finally, he muttered, "Not even close." My heart started to race again. The image of that wreck, the missing tractor, the broken chassis scattered across the forest floor, kept playing in my mind over and over. I hadn't even seen it up close, but somehow I knew what I was hearing was much worse than I could ever imagine. We both stood there for a moment, our eyes locked in shared understanding. No words needed to be said. The reality of what had happened back there was too much to digest. The missing tractor, the way the wreck didn't make sense. It wasn't just a crash. It felt like something more, something sinister. I didn't stay at the rest area for long. I climbed back into my truck, my hands still trembling, and I got back on the road. But every mile after that felt heavier. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had driven past something I wasn't meant to see. The wreck, the missing tractor. It was like a warning, a sign that something had gone horribly wrong. I still think about it sometimes, even now. The FedEx truck, the packages stuck in the trees, and the driver who never made it out of the wreck. What happened that night? How could something so strange, so wrong, be explained away as just an accident? I'm not sure. I want to know the answer. My dad's been a truck driver for years, and he's seen his fair share of strange things on the road. But there's one story he always tells that still gives me the chills, even now. It wasn't the kind of horror you expect on the highways, no wrecks or near-death experiences, but something about it has stuck with me. It happened in New York City, a place full of noise, chaos, and unpredictable characters. My dad was on his way through the city, trying to make his delivery on time. If you've ever been behind the wheel of a truck in the city, you know how stressful it can be. Streets packed with cars, people darting across the road like they own it. It's not an easy drive, especially for someone used to quieter roads. But my dad had done this route countless times, so he knew how to handle it. One day, as he was navigating through the narrow streets, he missed a turn and ended up in an unfamiliar part of town. He pulled over to the side of the road, trying to figure out the best way to get back on track. That's when a man approached the truck. At first, the guy looked like any other passerby, just another person in the city, no big deal. But then, out of nowhere, the man jumped up on the side of the cab, his hands gripping the window ledge. "Hey man, you're lost. I'll help you get back on the right path," the man said, his voice rough, but with a strange urgency. My dad, being a decent guy, nodded. He rolled down the window slightly and listened to the directions the man gave him. The man was insistent, walking along the side of the truck, pointing out streets, guiding my dad through the maze of traffic. Everything seemed normal at first, just another stranger offering directions in the city. But then, as the man finished giving him directions, he made a sudden demand. "That'll be 10, he said, his voice now shifting. It wasn't polite anymore. It was demanding, like he was owed something for his trouble. My dad was taken aback, not expecting the man to ask for money, but he didn't want to cause a scene. He reached into his pocket and handed the guy a few dollars, but the man didn't take it quietly. Instead, he grew angry, his tone turning belligerent. "You think that's enough? You better give me more than that," the man shouted, now leaning against the truck as if he owned it. Now, at this point, my dad knew something wasn't right. He wasn't one to back down easily, but this wasn't the time to argue with someone who was clearly getting more aggressive by the second. His gut told him this could escalate quickly, and he wasn't about to get stuck in a bad situation. Without another word, my dad started to drive off. He hit the gas and pulled away, hoping the man would back off. But the guy didn't just step away like a normal person. No, he jumped onto the side of the truck, holding on for dear life. My dad's heart raced as he could feel the truck lurch with the weight of the man hanging on. For a moment, my dad wasn't sure what the man would do. Was he going to try and force his way inside? Was he going to do something worse? My dad's mind was running 1,000 miles a minute, and the city around him blurred into a frenzy of noise. In the end, the man let go. As my dad sped away, he glanced in the rearview mirror to see the man falling off the side of the truck, landing hard on the asphalt. My dad didn't stop, didn't even slow down, just kept going, heart pounding until he was out of sight of the crazy man. When he finally pulled over, my dad sat there for a moment, trying to calm his shaking hands. He'd never experienced anything like that before, and he couldn't help but feel the lingering unease of the situation. What if the guy had tried something more? What if he hadn't jumped off when he did? I remember him telling me the story afterward, and it sent a shiver down my spine. Sure, it might not have been the most dangerous encounter, but the randomness of it, the way things escalated out of nowhere, it left me with a sinking feeling. What if my dad hadn't driven off? What if he had gotten into a struggle with that guy? Or worse, what if the man had come back with a weapon or a group of people? To this day, I can't shake the thought of how close he came to being stuck in a situation that could have turned violent in the blink of an eye. In the city, you never know who's watching or who you're dealing with, and sometimes that's what makes it even scarier. My dad's been a truck driver for as long as I can remember, and over the years, he's encountered some strange and unsettling situations on the road. But there's one experience that always stands out, a moment that for some reason still sends a chill down my spine. It happened in New York City. He was driving through the city, one of those long, grueling days where the truck feels like it's taking up the entire street, and every turn feels like an obstacle course. He'd been on the road for hours, and he needed to get to his next delivery. But first, he had to stop and ask for directions. In the hustle and bustle of the city, the streets were crowded, and the noise of traffic filled the air. My dad pulled up to a stoplight, his truck rumbling beneath him. That's when he noticed the man. The guy was standing on the corner, a little disheveled, but nothing too unusual for the city. My dad rolled down the window and asked for directions. He had no idea how this interaction was about to go sideways. The man approached the side of the cab and, with a surprising agility, jumped up onto the side of the truck. He leaned in, giving directions, his voice low but clear. My dad, just trying to get back on track, was listening intently. The man seemed helpful at first, pointing this way and that, making it sound like he knew the city like the back of his hand. But then, just as the man finished giving the directions, he made an unexpected demand. "That'll be $10, the man said, almost as though he was owed the money for his time. My dad was taken aback. He was just trying to get some help on his route, and now this guy was asking for money? It caught him off guard, but not wanting to make a scene, he dug into his pocket and handed the man a few dollars. But the man didn't stop there. Instead of just taking the money and going about his day, his demeanor shifted. His face went from casual to angry in an instant. "What is this? You think that's enough?" he barked, his voice growing louder. My dad, now feeling uneasy, tried to keep things calm. He didn't want any trouble. "That's all I have," he said, his patience thinning. But the man wasn't having it. His attitude turned belligerent, and he began to shout at my dad, demanding more. It was as if he was expecting something else entirely, something more than just a simple tip for directions. At that point, my dad's gut told him to get out of there. He wasn't about to stand there arguing with some stranger, especially not in a city like New York. He quickly rolled up the window, and without another word, he started the truck and began to drive off. The man, however, didn't just step away from the truck. No, he jumped back onto the side, gripping the edge of the truck with his hands as though he was trying to hitch a ride. My dad's heart raced as he felt the truck lurch with the weight of the man on the side. Was the guy going to climb inside? Was he going to try something worse? For a moment, it felt like the world slowed down. Everything outside the truck blurring into a distorted mess of buildings and streetlights. My dad's thoughts were racing. He needed to get away, but fast. Then, with a surge of adrenaline, my dad slammed the gas pedal to the floor. The truck roared to life as he sped off, trying to shake the man off. In the rearview mirror, he could see the man scrambling, trying to hang on. But finally, he let go, falling back onto the street. My dad didn't stop, didn't even slow down, just kept driving, no looking back. He had to get out of there. When he finally reached a safe place, he pulled over, his hands still shaking on the steering wheel. He sat there for a while, the tension slowly draining out of him But even then, the unease lingered. He kept thinking about what could have happened. What if the guy had been more aggressive? What if he'd done something worse? Something that could have turned violent? My dad had been in some tense situations before, but this one felt different. It wasn't the violence that scared him. It was the unpredictability of it all, the randomness of it, that feeling that at any given moment something could change and spiral out of control and there was nothing you could do to stop it. I still think about that story, even now. My dad didn't see it coming, and neither did I when he told me. It wasn't the kind of horror you expect to hear about from truck drivers, but it was the kind of experience that sticks with you. You can never really know who you're dealing with out there on the road. And sometimes it's those random encounters, the ones that don't make sense, that are the scariest. Do you have your own experiences with strange, unsettling moments on the road? Maybe you've encountered something or someone that made your heart race and your mind question what just happened. Share your story with me. Don't forget to subscribe for more spine-tingling stories from the road. Sometimes the scariest things are the ones you can't explain.